Hey everybody, welcome back to Electric Cafe. Today's album review is on 808's 1991 album XL. This is their fourth album. This is a very important album for me for when I was 15 years old when this came out. I was just kind of getting to hear Pacific the year before, which is probably their all-time most important record, I guess, or most popular one you could say. And so I had a friend, and I think I was a sophomore or freshman, and he knew I liked dance music. He knew I liked new wave and synth pop and stuff like that, and instrumental music, dance music. So he was like, "You should check out this 808 State," and so I did, and I loved it. And then this one came out, and they were probably one of my favorite bands that year. I got a chance to see them in 1993, open for New Order. I saw them in 1997. Um, I think in 1996 I think it was either Electric Daisy Carnival or the Nocturnal Wonderland, one of those raves in California in the mid '90s. The whole warehouse and raves mid '90s is a blur for me. And I got a chance to meet Graham Massey and actually exchanged a few emails with him over the past 25 years. And really nice guy. I actually met him at the Autech concert in 2000. Maybe it was 2007. I think his dub outfit sort of. I can't remember the name of it, but they opened for Autech on their American tour. And just a really nice guy. But 808 State was so important for me growing up, and it's kind of fitting in some ways that I've been kind of introducing some electronic music here and there, and it's kind of fitting that one of my early reviews be this album because it means a lot to me, and so does 808 State. So yeah, let's get into the review, and my favorite songs on this album are probably Lift, In Your Face, Nefertiti. But it's also got a lot of really great secondary songs like Oops, Spanish Heart, and Q Mart, which all of them feature guest appearances from Bernard Sumner from New Order on Spanish Heart, and then Bjork on Oops and Q Mart. From that time, she was still with Sugar Cubes, and so this album has a lot of great dance music. It's I was a big fan of drum machines in the late '80s and early '90s, and that was also a big tie for me. Was the artwork and just the appreciation and respect for the 808 drum machine was huge. Like I can remember in 1989, I went into it was my birthday. It was my 13th birthday, and I took my dad into a electronics store that I knew had some recording equipment. They had an 808 drum machine, and the guy who worked there gave us a little tutorial on it, and I took home a brochure and I looked at that thing and dreamed about that thing for weeks on end, I'm sure. But it was $1,300. I still remember that price in 1989, and I'm pretty sure like 90% that was the price because I remember it being over 1,000, but not over like not something ridiculous like 2,000, but um, it would have been an expensive birthday present, and so I didn't get it. But there's always a part of me that wishes or wonders what would have happened if I did get that. Would I have continued to make music? Because there's a lot of times that I've tried to make music, and I would make a song or something like that, but it wouldn't like it did. It never gave me the satisfaction of hearing an already produced something by somebody else. If you think about it, it was in a music appreciation, and like I've always been about like finding music and learning about music and stuff like that, and playing music and playing it for other people, right? So just that digging and finding and discovering and playing has always been me. So the time I would take to make a decent track that I was happy with could be a day when I could go through let's say I spent 8 hours on making a track. I could find 10 great records that would probably be even better in 8 hours. So that was kind of my thought process and why it really never stick. But there was always different times when through my life where I bought a some kind of drum machine or some computer program and tried to make music and see if it stuck. But it really never stuck for more than making like one song, and then I'd return the equipment and get my money back or something like that. But I've had I still have some keyboards and stuff like that, and I do have the Roland. I actually have the Roland 808 mini module that Roland's came out with like 6, 7, 8 years ago. They went through that little mini, making those mini modules and stuff, and I have a few of those. But it's just it was really I always kind of included in my DJ sets and playing and just like to learn how to play button how to learn how to work the machines and I've always had an interest in that and it always tied back to 808. There was it's just the name of the band. I love the 808 machine. It was one of my favorites. Probably still is my favorite. It's got one of the deepest basses. I love the bells on 808 machines. If you know that, I love the even the cowbell is funny, which is a lot of times 808 State would make a song title. Like on here, track number 12 is Techno Bell, and the bells were always great on 808 machines, and yeah, it was just I've always really enjoyed playing on the 808 drum machine over the years, and whenever I saw it in like a studio or something like that I worked at, I would just start fooling around with it and playing with it, and I always loved the sound of it. I worked at this one studio. Um, I was freelancing for one day. It was in Buena Vista, I think near Disney on Buena Vista Boulevard in I guess near Burbank in California. And I was working for this R&B producer, and he had the drum machine set up, and he was like hooking it up, and he's like, hey, I got somebody coming in to record something, and I was like, oh, okay, cool, let's hook it up. And I started playing with it and getting levels and stuff like that, and he had a drum loop already sort of programmed on it, like a guitar or something like that, and yeah, he's like, oh, I got this guy coming in, and he's gonna rap over it. And so it was so strange, but I was such a huge Too Short fan, and back from like 1980, late 80s, and all the way through the 90s, and in walks Too Short and goes to the booth, and I'm just like, am I really gonna record Too Short? I was like, this is like a dream come true. And so he gets on the microphone, and I start getting his levels, and I'm smiling on my face because, and at the same time, I'm super nervous because I'm just out of recording school. This is like 1996, and so at the same time, he's like biatch and like just getting levels and saying like dirty cuss words and stuff like that and start rapping, and I just had the biggest smile on my face, but at the same time I'm like super nervous. I'm like, is this really happening? I'm recording Too Short. This is so strange. And so yeah, it was a cool experience. I'm still surprised I got the levels to tape, because it was a 24 track. The guy brought in a 24 track, maybe his assistant or something like that, and he's like, "Hey, this is going to be on Jay-Z's new album." And in 1996, I wasn't really into hip hop anymore, and I didn't really. I think I had heard of Jay-Z in '96, but this is way before like Hard Knock Life and before he really became huge. But certainly the album that Too Short, this track was on. Um, was going to be big as well, but I think it was the album before that. But anyways, I recorded the overdubs for that track, and I didn't get credit on the album, but no big deal. But big deal because the story is so great. So I go outside, and I just happened to walk outside. I'm not sure why. And Too Short's out there, and I guess he's waiting for a ride. And I just say, I'm like, hey, I don't want to be unprofessional or anything like that, but man, I'm a huge fan of yours. I've been a fan of yours for a really, really long time. He's like, oh, cool, man, I appreciate that, or whatever he said. And then he took out a roll of like 20s and he paid me cash for doing the engineer work. And I didn't even ask for that, but he goes, okay, I'll see you tomorrow. So the next day I come back and I bring a album cover because I want him to sign it. And I think I still have it in the other room. And I had him sign Cocktails, the album Cocktails. And he said, to Tim, life is too short, too short. And so I recorded him that day, and then the owner of the studio came out, and he's like, oh, that was really unprofessional of you to ask for his autograph. And I was like, dude, you're not even paying me. I was like, he paid me, and you're not even paying me. And so the day ended, and I never went to that studio again, or never freelanced for that guy again. But still had a cool story of recording Too Short, and it was funny because in Vegas, I was a few years later. I was at I think it was the Caesar's Palace, and I was like really wasted. I was with my girlfriend, and I walk into the hotel, and outside was Too Short. And I was wasted, and I was like, hey, Too Short. I was like, hey, do you remember me? I recorded you a couple of years ago. He was like, hey, what's up, man? And so that was cool. That was like I don't. I mean, I have a lot of like little funny kind of like celebrity stories here and there from being in LA, but that was one that I really liked. That was kind of part of my childhood because Too Short was probably my favorite rapper. And the reason why I'm telling you the story is because he used the 808 machine. And 808 machine, it was what was my favorite drum machine growing up in those days. And it was mostly because of Too Short. Um, because of his tracks. But anyways, let's get back to this review here. Um, there's 13 tracks on here. The first track, San Francisco, it's kind of an okay opener. I don't know if it really. It's kind of one of the weakest tracks on the album in my view, and which is strange because for an album that I really like, you would think that the opener would just come out and be like, oh yeah, I know what's coming, and I know there's a great album this is on, and but I still have that feeling when I hear it, but it's just not on the level of a lot of the other tracks on here. It's just really, I don't have too much to say about the track. It's just, it's good, but it's just kind of, I don't know, just kind of maybe not the best opener. There's a couple tracks on here. I feel like if you kind of like maybe most albums that kind of push 12, 13 tracks, if you take a couple of the tracks off here and you get closer to like 10 songs, the album is much more cohesive, and you have the time to really get through a 10 track album. When you're getting the 13, 14, 15 tracks, it's just really hard to sit down and listen, in one. And I always think about like, like when you drive to work or something like that, and you have like a 20-minute drive, you're like, well, what CD can I put on? And you kind of want a CD that gets you there and gets you back, and you listen to the whole CD, right? That was always important for me. We get up in the morning and like, okay, I gotta drive to wherever. Okay, that's a 15-minute drive. Okay, I got a 15-minute. But most of the time it'd be a 30 to 40-minute drive. 20 minutes there, 20 minutes back, 25 minutes maybe. But a lot of times, 30 minutes each way. You might get a phone call or something like that when you on your way too. But it was always like 35 to 45-minute tracks. Albums were like perfect for for a day's listen, going to work and back, or going anywhere and back. It was just perfect to hear an album in that time of just driving anywhere and then back. I've always thought about that in my listening life, just since I've been driving, just like, okay, what am I going to play? Okay, how long a drive is it? Okay, let me play this one. Oh, it's only 30 minutes? Okay. 50 minutes each way. Okay, let me get a maxi single. Um, but yeah, this album's kind of pushing probably closer to like 50 minutes, and so it could be that if you kind of take off a couple tracks, it might have been a little bit easier to do that with. Originally, I had the cassette of this, and then I still have my CD, but this is a later reissue. I might as well show. This is when they released it. I think 2016 was a double album. They did a really nice job with this, and you know, probably should probably I probably should. Oh, I never even. I tell you how much. Sometimes I play my I play CDs a lot so often when I'm not DJing that I didn't even notice that it had the original all the information inside of it like the original CD and cassette did, which is really cool. I might have to frame this. This is I just love the artwork and the colors. I've always been into like gray and like darker colors, but I just love the graphic on here. It's so like you know architecture, architecture, architecture. God, I can't pronounce today. But then also the colors and the design, everything like that. The lines, how symmetrical and futuristic it looks, and just goes with techno. Goes with the music, right? But yeah, I still haven't played this record, because I always play the CD if I play it. I mix on CDs and vinyl, so a lot of times, if I'm gonna DJ or play it, I'm just gonna pull out the CD versus playing on record and have to turn over the four sides to hear all the full album. That's just the way I am when I'm listening to CDs and vinyl. If I have both if I have both of them on, if I have them on both formats, and usually a lot of times the best albums in my life that are this old, I'll probably have on multiple formats for sure. San Francisco though, the opener, I think 2 stars. It's a good track. It's nothing great though. Spanish Heart uh, features Bernard Sumner. Definitely has a cool beat. Love the 808 deep bass hits on this particular track. Nice melody. I think he does a smooth performance on it, vocally. Um, in some ways, this track's almost better than a lot of the music on New Order's 1993 album Republic. That came out a couple years after this. But I mean, Bernard Sumner and New Order were just on a roll in like 1987 to like 93, just as far as the amount of output, from being on electronic and then even New Order, Bernard Sumner on here, and the side projects, which I'll be reviewing the other two here shortly, and um, I mean, New Order is. I was just playing so much New Order in like '87 and '93. Um, what else? What else? Yeah, three and a quarter stars for Spanish Heart. Leo Leo it's a fun track. I gave it 2 and 3/4 stars. It's close to being very good. Q-Mart, such a great beat, melody. Bjork's vocal is so smooth. I wish he did more of this. I wish he did more, maybe with 808 State. I think that this track kind of probably inspired her direction on her solo. But if you saw my review on Bjork's album, imagine if 808 State did the music for a few of those tracks on that album. I think it would have been even better. Because like this is a perfect example. I mean, Q-Mart and then the track Oops. I think they're fantastic tracks that have aged really well, and I like how moody they are. I think Bjork has a really interesting voice on so many levels. Depending on how she sings, but I really like when she sings like the tracks here in this album, just really smooth. Well, she's kind of more speaking a little bit than and fitting into the vibe of the song than really kind of going outside of her limits. 4 stars for Q-Mart. Also Nefertiti 4 stars. It's probably my favorite track on the album. It's one I always go back to. I think it's got the best combination of a really sick beat, melody, the deep 808 bass. It's a little bit eerie. It's got a cool vocal sample in the "We Are the Music Makers" from Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, and also Aphex Twin even did that, of course, with that vocal sample. But for me, this track is everything about the album. I mean, it's everything that 808 State represents, and when they're at their peak and their most my most favorite tracks, they sound like this. It's just sick beat, deep 808 bass, really good melody, a little bit eerie, some kind of cool rave sample. It's just great. I think 4 stars. Also Lift, the next track, sort of has that really close to 4 stars too. 3 3/4 stars. I call it the ice skating melody. If you know Lift, I probably should have. You know what? Probably. I don't do this often, but I do want to show. Since I have it here, here's the 808 State Lift EP or maxi single. But Lift was always a really good track. If you know the track, and then you Open Your Mind was a great B-side. But Lift, if you know the track, has the melody. I call it the ice skating melody. You can see I got this for $5 at Amoeba Records, probably back in like 2002 or late 90s, something like that. Maybe older, but $5 for an EP, not bad. But Lift is such a great track, and the remixes on here are cool. But yeah, I call it the ice skating melody. It's if you know it, you know what I'm talking about. Oops, 4 stars as well. Bjork's great on this one too. The acoustic guitar is nice. And then into Empire, 3 3/4 stars as well. Really good 808 work on this track. The sounds, the melody, really strong. In Your Face, 3.5 stars. I just put rave. This track is so rave to me. Cubic. I don't like Cubic as much as maybe other people do. There's other versions that I do like better than the album version here. But this one has a good groove. Has the main stabs. The main melody stabs are kind of very ravey for sure. I give it 3 3/4 stars. But just wow, like those last 6 7 tracks, just 4 star, 4 star, 4 star, 3 3/4 stars, 3 3/4 stars, 3.5 stars, 3 1/4 stars. Just the tracks 2 through 10, just awesome. Unfortunately, the album ends on a lower note. The last 3 tracks are not as good. Starting with number 11, Lambrusco Cowboy. It's definitely the worst song on the album. I don't even know why they put it on there. I got it 1 1/4 stars. Just a little bit better than okay. Probably being a little generous on that. Probably closer to like 3/4 of a star. I think it's probably a little bit better, a little bit less than okay. Techno Bell's not bad. I give it. I shouldn't say not bad. I mean, I give it 3 stars. It's a very good track, but it's just. I mean, after the highs of those tracks, and then going to Lambrusco Cowboy, just kind of like, just kind of hurt the album a little bit, towards the end. And in Techno Bell, they're just like throwing everything at the kitchen sink. There's just like all kinds of sound effects on there, but still, I mean, all kinds of 808 sounds on there, just like going crazy with it. But yet they still add in their key melody and let the groove linger, and you have a great 808 State track. Or not great, but very good. You know what I mean? But that's kind of the like how good they were is even though if there's some kind of iffy sounds on there or whatever, they seem to always kind of for the most part tie it back into what they did great, and then you had at least a good song for sure. Olympics not bad. It's two and a half stars. It sounds like Orbital a little bit. It definitely always reminds me of Orbital, especially because it's the ending song, and it kind of leaves that impression of like you're kind of evolving into Orbital. And I would think like probably since I mentioned Orbital and this, they sound like this last song sounds like Orbital. Like that seemed to kind of Orbital seemed to have after this album seemed to kind of take on the same role that 808 State did for me, but from a dance, maybe more urban dance, house way, acid house, whatever, into straight more techno. Even though 808 State had more techno, you can't get much more earlier vintage proper techno, early '90s techno example than Orbital. And that scene, Orbital kind of took on my appreciation from 808 State after this album. The album after this, Gorgeous, was okay, but that was kind of the last kind of 808 State album that was good in my opinion, and Gorgeous probably half of it was good. Um, but after this is kind of like this is like the end of their pinnacle years. Am I? I'm not the hugest acid house fan. Um, I do like some acid house for sure, um, but I feel like I don't know if '87 is my favorite 808 State. Probably more so like '89 to '91 is my favorite 808 State period. I'm not a huge fan of all the pre-build and new build songs, but I love the three 808 State albums before Gorgeous. So overall 73 out of 100. I think it's a very good album. It's on the lower side of very good. I think without the last three tracks, um, maybe in a better opener, it would definitely be in the 80s and be an excellent album. Um, I feel like this is an excellent album, but when you actually like listen to it, there are some tracks that you know that aren't kind of on the level to where you feel like it could help the album kind of get to that uh, excellent scoring for me. Um, but 808 Love, so much 808 Love on this album, mixed with techno and urban dance music. And they always had a good melody. They always did a good job of turning songs or dance songs into complete songs. And I think in some ways that's kind of a lost art. Is you have nowadays you just have a lot of people making techno and house music, and they're they're not necessarily making it like a song, like a 3 to 5 minute song, like having an intro and then sort of going to a chorus and then coming back and going into a chorus and a bridge and winding it down and sort of ending. That was a very 80s way, and very early 90s, more so middle to late 80s way of making a dance track. They still sort of made a dance track, especially if you hear these ones like they would make a synth pop song or a new wave song. I think in some ways it's kind of a lost art. I really do appreciate and respect the older music, the way they made them sound like an instrumental of a song, and I think that was kind of a lot of the goals of how producers made electronic music in the early days. Is they would program them like as if they were instrumentals of songs, you know, and that came from them doing remixes of other people's work. You know what I mean? Like if you think of like David Morales or Louis Vega or Justin Strauss or a lot of the really Junior Vasquez, Danny Tenaglia. If you think of those type of original, like Marshall Jefferson's another one. If you think of like the way those people did remixes back in the late '80s, they still program the songs, even though they could be 7 to 9 minute songs. They still sort of programmed them like an extended remix of a song. That's just how it was, and I miss those times because because they sound like instrumental of a song. A lot of times these days, techno and house producers, it's sort of they build the track for a minute or two, and you're kind of waiting around and stuff like that, and then it sort of goes somewhere, drops, does something in the middle, and then sort of comes back and then goes to an ending. And it's sort of more like this than kind of like an up and down and a full track. So I miss those days a lot when I come to when you hear music like this. There's definitely an appreciation of it, of the songs, of the techno music and the house music feeling like they're sounding like they're songs. I feel like that's kind of a lost art these days. Anyways, um, there's definitely a lot of catchy and good deepness on here, and I think that's what's great about this, especially is there's just enough deepness to where it still has good staying power, which a lot of 1991 techno and rave music unfortunately doesn't. Um, it doesn't have the deepness to really. I wouldn't say all. I'm just saying some or a lot doesn't have the deepness to really kind of um, have the lasting power that this does. Plus also these beats are in a nice BPM range. They're almost like timeless dance songs because they're not pushing like over 130 BPMs for the most part. So they're kind of timeless dance songs because of that. Um, High energy or rave or techno, whatever you want to call it, but this is a really good album. I want to say a great album, and it's still a great album to me. But when I actually sit back 34 years later and 33 years later and review it, I guess it's a very good album. There's some moments on it where it's not so good, and you take 3 or 4 tracks on here and you put it down to 9 or 10, and I think you do have a great album. But I'm here to review the whole album as it is, and that's the score I gave it. So 73 out of 100. Thanks for listening, reviewing, watching my review today. A little tired today. This is my first review of the day. All right, thanks a lot. Oh, curious. What are your favorite 3 tracks on this album? For me, it's Nefertiti. Mm, I want to say In Your Face, but based on my scoring, it's Nefertiti and then Q Martin and Oops, both Bjork tracks, which is. But I think for some variety, I would say my favorite tracks are Nefertiti. Let's go with I don't know, Q Martin or Oops are better, but then let's go with Lift. Lift is my third favorite. All right, thanks so much for listening and watching and viewing.